this is our visiting artist, Bernd Haussmann. And we are going to just have a casual chat today about the work. I thought we can all sort of walk around together with Bernd and he can speak about the work, and then we'll end looking at the series of videos that he has in the back. And I think that will help to inform the work a little bit more. I was able to travel up to north of Boston, where he and his wife live and where Bernd's studio is, where they spend some of their time, and pick the show with Bernd, which was a great experience. So I think it's a little bit more intimate to me maybe than some of the other shows that I have, because I had such a hand in helping to choose the pieces that we were going to show, and I'm really happy to have everything that we do here. We have about 24 pieces hanging now, and everything from the show is in the first 3 rooms here, and then the last room has 4 older pieces that are from a different series. But I just want to give a warm welcome to Bernd, and we will start, and feel free to ask questions as we go, and if there's anything that you're particularly interested in seeing, just stop us, and I'm sure he'd be happy to take questions.
Great, thanks. So, since this is not a formal lecture or anything, we can be very casual, and I haven't set anything up, and there's no visual backup for my talk other than the work, which is right there. But I think I want to give you a couple little glimpses into my world, which might be helpful in getting access and into the work. And while I was driving up here with our friends, I just had breakfast with in another part of town, I thought about places, and I thought places, and we just talked about places. Places could be an interesting start into our conversation, into our dialogue, because places inform art. Places do make you as an individual change or alter your personal environment, engage you in a specific way with the outside world, all these things. And we live in, as Emily said, in north of Boston at the ocean. And as soon as we were established there, my wife and I felt the desperate need to find a house in the mountains. And I was wondering why that is. And of course, it's that weird desire and that urge. You always want what you don't have. And I'm trying to, and then coming from Europe, growing up in Europe, coming into this world, into this environment, certainly affected the work also. I think what makes my work, the components that make my work, have a lot to do with places and have a lot to do with my personal history, my genetic history, and my curiosity in beginnings. And beginnings goes in all directions. Beginnings in a maybe biological sense, maybe also a little bit in a spiritual sense, but also in a very practical sense. When you live in both places or 3 places or here and there, it's sometimes hard to be in one place, to be grounded. And I think art can help us get grounded. And I think art as a general tool can help us to focus and become ourselves. So, specific and less all over the board, Darwin's Coral is one of my many projects over the years, many series that evolved, like Darwin's theory works that start somewhere and take me some place. Here we have the places again, or locations. Darwin's Coral started, I would say, a little less than 2 years ago. And it just organically merged from one group of paintings, which was called Mountains and Oceans, into this new series that didn't have a title then. My art training was very traditional, and I did a lot of printmaking, traditional printmaking as in edging and woodcut and all that stuff. And that certainly is another important component specifically for Darwin's Coral, because when you think of printmaking and the most simple form of printmaking, or the imprint that my foot makes in the sand, or how we ultimately, by layering information, try to make sense of something. This is what Darwin's Coral is about. Incidentally, Darwin's, I think, 200th birthday was last year, and some researcher at the University of Berlin, the Humboldt University in Berlin, came up with this new approach into Darwin's theory of evolution, which talks about the tree of life, how everything starts someplace and it grows and spreads out and branches out. And this guy, I forget his name, wrote a book on that tree of life, but his research showed him that it was not the tree, like a tree that we always associated the theory with, but it was a coral. And parallel, I was doing my work, so I get into reading the book and getting a little deeper into Darwin's theories and the story of his evolution. And I thought this is the perfect fit, so that's why the title came. Corals are very special, very fragile life forms that grow, as we know, over millions of years and create their own environment. They start somewhere and they keep growing and they die and they fossilize and they grow on top of that, so there's no waste. Everything is added on to the next layer of life, and the whole thing becomes the coral reef. So when you look at the paintings in a few minutes, you will see layers that are maybe occasionally reminiscent and reminding you of nature, or reminding you even of coral or veins or something like that. But the important part is the layering. And so going through this, while you paint, while you're spending time at the studio, you cannot avoid using your brain while you work and wander off and explore new ideas. And so the series merges within itself, or there's an evolution within this group of work itself. And maybe, I don't know, from a very early start, when I started getting serious about painting, it was always my curiosity in beginnings. I always felt that nature informs all my work. I began to understand that I'm part of nature, that I'm nature, and art is nature, and nature is art. And so it all comes together, and all is one, and everything is the same. And so, if you like, let's do a little tour. At the end, or at the end of, before we look at the videos, I recommend you ask me questions, and we can get a little more specific. Cool. So, Emily, where do we start? We should start here, because it starts with those images. And we can go immediately to the presentation. We call those satellites. It could be also called footnotes. You will see a few more in the other rooms. Like one informs the other, and the one color or the one surface supports the other part, and vice versa. They're individual pieces, and at the studio and at my studio practice, I often work on large, or in this case mid-sized pieces, and small pieces. The small pieces are cleansers because you get closer and you get into details and your eyes relax. And the larger pieces are a different story. They're more physical and it's more of a back and forth movement, much more exhausting mentally and physically actually even more. So we thought it would be kind of interesting what happens if, and it's another Darwin's thought, what happens if you connect these two pieces? What happens when I put the red next to blue? Does the blue become more blue and the red more red? Or how do they talk with each other? The dialogue. So just a few pieces, two examples, and I invite you a little closer here and would like you to look at those two pieces, which are also Darwin's coral, and heavily layered with silver paint. And there's a little brother, sister, relative, or something, subspecies of that guy in here. What silver paintings do specifically, this is a highly reflective paint. So the environment of that painting will be affected by the environment of the natural world that this is surrounded by. And so with the change of natural light or artificial light, this piece will change and throughout the day, and maybe also eventually will change with your mood, or the mood you're in will pick up different elements. So it's directly reflecting evolution.
Do you start with the small piece to like experiment with something new that will transfer then when you get?
No, the little piece is always as important as the big piece, okay. And it's really just physically much easier, right? When you do a little piece of jewelry versus running around with tons of steel under your arm, it's a different sensation, different approach. This is as important to me as this piece. Of course, it has a very different impact because of the size. There's a couple little pieces, you can look at those later, they're also connected, but I'd like to take you into the large space. So here's another central piece and two satellites. And in this case, what I said earlier, I think really happens, like the pink becomes more pink and the blue becomes more of a happy sky blue, and the one plays off the other. Very related, but very different. And this guy down there, of course, seems too far removed, but again takes some of the close-up and interprets it differently in that almost monochrome blue, which is not monochrome because when you look closer, there's a ton of little things happening. This is on wood. Sorry.
Can you talk about your process and technique at all?
I can. I'm not sure I want to.
Okay.
And I've been asked that many times. And there's no secret about painting. It's really, I mean, it's just work. It's just hard work and trying to learn the materials. I personally believe that talking about the technical aspects will not really help you ultimately to access
Only
painting.
if you're another painter.
Pardon?
Only if you're another painter.
Well, we'll talk in private. If you're
Yeah.
a painter, then I'm happy to share this with
The
you.
texture actually looks like coral.
Right.
It actually is reminiscent
Well,
of the patterns.
Exactly. And this is something that I discovered throughout that exploration of painting, throughout that series. Exactly as you said, I was looking at those patterns and I realized that the physicality of the medium, the physicality of the painting, literally not only copies but becomes nature. It's very reminiscent of nature. Another couple. And I don't think that I need to talk specifically about each piece, but I hope, and that was the idea, that they all have a different mood, carry you into different, take you to a different place, back to our early thoughts.
If you could talk a little bit about how some of the silver paintings, which
Right.
we're seeing here, with sort of fit into Darwin's coral, even though they're from
Right.
a little bit of a different time.
That's true. The silver paintings started probably 10 years ago, and I got really into silver paintings a few years ago. And I recently did a show with a lot of silver paintings in a museum in Massachusetts. And what I found very interesting in that show was the museum had this big opening like Emily has to the outside world. And for the first time I really saw a painting change through time and with the light changing. And that was one of the main concepts of the silver paintings, and I was very pleased when I saw that it really works. It really does continue to engage you in different ways because it's not stagnant. I mean, the problem of painting in general is versus video or something. It's just this. You work on it and you get it to a certain point where it's just like done, and that's it. And very little art, two-dimensional art, has the ability to change. There's some painters from the Art Povera movement and other eras where art disintegrates, where they paint with chocolate or something and it gets moldy and drippy and all that. But in general, we have to live with the fact that you start something and there you have it, that's it. And with the silver paintings, I found with that addition of chance, of the natural element, I'm personally able to add another layer of excitement for myself.
Let's step into the next room.
Sure. And maybe we start with those pieces because they are clear hybrids of those silver paintings and the coral image, or the surfaces that remind you of corals or something. And we put them here because they're very related, but they're very different. And when you stand like here and you look straight out into the other room, you have this what's happening in these two pieces in the piece down there. What you also see is like the one is kind of like talking to the other piece. They're brothers or sisters, or two lovers, or related, very related, right? It's a different mood.
Did you do those at the same time, during the same period? Or are they sequential?
Those paintings are done over a period of time. The silver paintings often are done over months and years. Occasionally a painting paints itself, and then it's a very clear shot, and you're very happy you do it, and it's done, and it works. Often, and that's how you see these many layers, it's an evolutionary process. My painting process is certainly, again, reminiscent of an evolutionary process that you see in the natural world. One adds to the other, one little thought informs the other, and what you ultimately end up is like this very richly layered piece of information that you now may try to decipher or not, and just let it be, let it live.
Bernd, since it's hard beginning and no end to everything, it seems to be so much part of the work. How do you decide
When to end?
Yeah, when to end?
I hate that question. It's one of those things that you cannot clearly explain. It's a quality control process that you establish for yourself over time, and you live by those rules and you stretch them, but it's the perimeters that you set up, and within these perimeters you find what you think is working, is successful, or whatnot. And the end of a painting is when it's done. So I think this is, can we say this is Emily's favorite painting? And I don't know why, but it's another painting, but there's an interesting layering. And maybe I talk to you a tiny little bit more about perception and how we look at the world, or how our brains and eye connect, and how they try to make sense and try to make connections. In this piece, I very clearly see two layers. When you look a little closer, you might see three very distinct layers. And living at the ocean, spending so much time on the water and in the water, you look at the surface of the water, and on a calm day, it's like a mirror, or it's these little rivulets of information, and you focus on that surface, and you see the surface. And then you see this starfish down there on the ground, like whatever, 8-10 feet down, and you focus on the starfish down there, and you lose the information of your previous surface experience, and it's all a matter how your brain processes and makes sense of that space. And it's interesting how we can, through focusing our mind, our eyes through our mind, maybe how we can switch from surface to bottom. And then it gets really complicated, because then this little school of fish is swimming by in the middle ground. So you have another layer of information to process. This is what interested me, particularly in this painting, which is probably illustrated a little bit in this piece because you can't help it that certain things guide you into the piece, but then when you spend time with it, you can pull them apart, like this nature experience of the water, or like the music of a Bach fugue or something, where you have 2 or 3 different voices in a little piano piece, and when you concentrate and focus your mind or your hearing, you can hear one melody and then you can hear the other, and what you hear is the end product. What you can see is the end product of layers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
To me, they seem when you're up close, they're really textural.
Right.
When you're farther back, they're more atmospherical. But I was just wondering how come, maybe didn't use like more forms or larger shapes in the process. It kind of seems you're in 2 extremes, like really textural or
Right, and some in some areas very thin washes, right? I always like that. It's the duality of things. It's that the one you can only understand by accepting the other, like thin and thick, or light and dark, sweet and sour, or it's only if it was all the same, all surfaces, I wouldn't be able to tell the whole story. It's very important to me, that's another reason, it's very important to me that you are able to look at a piece from very, very, very close, and then you step back and you get a different kind of information, but there's still something connecting with the work. And what we can do in Emily's gallery here is we can step all the way back, and I hope there's something still talking to you. And I hope that you're not disappointed then when you get close and the thing falls apart or moves to the edges. I hope there's a different layer of information that slowly releases its energy. Does that answer the question a little bit? It's like it's also the process of painting and the layering of ideas. I mean, there's this concept, and then you move on, and throughout the process, these layers very organically happen.
So look at videos so that you can.
I would say if anybody has another question, I would like to answer that now, and then I would like you to look at 5 tiny little video clips. They're all like a minute or 2 long, that are very closely related to the work, right? And probably give you another level or layer of information, another possibility of access into the work. So, any other thoughts on paint?
I just have an observation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm-
share it. Well,
I don't
share it
know
with
right
us.
about it,
There's no right or wrong.
but your small paintings look very more intensely chromatic than the bigger ones. The bigger ones are very subtle. Some of them. I mean,
Right.
especially this one. It's really,
Right.
I can see from a distance, I see different colors, and I get close, it's changed.
Right.
It's like you're saying, it's really moving all
Yeah.
the time. But the little paintings are very...
Like this one here?
Yeah, like all the little ones seem
Yeah.
very intense, and I'm wondering if there's a reason for that.
It's not part of the concept, no.
No.
I mean, there's a very subtle piece
Right,
up there.
So that blows my theory.
That's a theory. But this is an ongoing series, and I'm not done. I'm not even close to seeing the horizon. I will continue to explore the subtle and the heavy layered. I will continue to explore black and white or silver and heavy saturated color. It's always, I don't like to limit myself. And what you see is a fraction of the whole. A small piece has a different presence, no matter what, than a large one. A little piece of jewelry,
No, it's true.
right? You have to get close, and it becomes very intense when you get close. A large piece is more of an environment that you can directly wander into or explore. Well, thank you. Shall we look at the videos and